This podcast is brought to you by the North Dakota Petroleum Foundation. From heating our homes and powering our vehicles to cell phones, clothing, and medical equipment, oil and natural gas makes everyday life better. North Dakota Oil and Natural Gas, advancing the possibilities. Learn more at ndpetroleumfoundation.org. Welcome to Plain Talk Live. I'm your host, Rob Port. So, when are the checks from the government going to stop? And when I say that, obviously the government's always going to send some level of checks. But here's the thing. We've been getting economic stimulus payments. We've been getting direct payments during the pandemic. Now the most recent thing is, according to the $1.9 trillion coronavirus rescue package that was just passed by Democrats. It was a Democratic bill. We're going to be getting child tax credit payments as well. And this is all happening. We have the expanded unemployment benefits. We had that debate last week where, Governor Burgum and a lot of other state level leaders are, they're not going to participate in the federal program anymore, the expanded unemployment benefits. So all of this stuff is going on. And is it really addressing what America needs right now? Because I'm pretty sure what North Dakota needs, I'm pretty sure what America needs is we got to get back to work. We got to get back to business as usual. Here to talk with me about that is Jay Thomas, my good friend, host of the Jay Thomas Show, which you can hear 2 to 5 p.m. on WDAY AM970 in Fargo. And Jay, I got to tell you, I get some of these payments. I've qualified for some of them. And the thing is, they don't even ask me if I want it or not. I mean, one day I looked at my bank account and money had shown up in there, and I had to go look up, like, what is this from? What?
I get nothing. Nothing.
Well, you got to have some kids, I think.
No, you know what? I love our children, but let's see. Some money in the bank or having to deal with teenagers. You know what? I'll take neither.
I would give all the money. I would give all the money back. I have a 13-year-old right now, and I would give all the money back if somebody else could deal with some of the tantrums. Which I love. I love my girl, but holy cow, is 13 a tough time.
I'm glad we had boys, man.
Well, I don't know. I mean, when is this going to end, Jay? And have you ever heard this famous quote? And it talks about how no democracy can survive as a permanent form of government, and that it only lasts as long as until people figure out that they can vote themselves money from the Treasury. You ever heard that quote?
Yeah, I have. And that's what we're doing right now. I mean, honestly, Rob, I don't see this nonstop of handing out government money ending anytime soon. Now, I'm not talking about programs we already had, SNAP programs and all that. I get that there's a place for that. There are people, and I'm all for helping people in need.
Let's make that
to the point where families can sometimes can walk away with over $80,000 a year. Why would you go back to work?
Well, and let's make that clear. I don't think either of us is against the safety net, right? We're not against the idea that tough times happen to people for a lot of different reasons that are more various than we can go into here. We've been there. We've been there. Everybody in their life at one point, boy, you're getting towards the end of the month and you just don't have enough to cover it, right? Everybody's been at that point at some point in their lives, or most of us have anyway. So I don't have a problem with safety net for that, right? You hit the safety net, you bounce back into work. What I'm worried about is that the politicians, that this is just going to be a typical thing. It's just going to be a race to see which politician can write checks the fastest. And we've had that debate in politics before. That's not a new thought in politics. But the thing is we're not even gussying it up in other programs, right? We're not filtering it through some social program or anything else. This is just straight up money showing up in your account.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid it's all going to become permanent.
And I honestly believe, this is my conspiracy hat. I don't like doing conspiracy theory once in a while, but I really believe it's not a conspiracy theory, and that is the government, they keep handing out money, whatever form it's in. Whether it's COVID relief or it's for this, they're going to keep handing this out. People become dependent on the government. That's what the government wants, because if you're dependent on the government, then what the government wants to do, you're going to go on board because they're the ones that are taking care of you. They're the ones that are handing you out that money. At the end of the day, that's my new catchphrase now. End of the day, I got to quit saying that all the time. but you see what's going on here, and it's not just in North Dakota. It is all over the country. I listen to a station once in a while over online out in New Jersey, and it's the same thing out there. They cannot get people to come back to work, and they're offering big dollars. And you can't continue to do this. Look what's happening. Have you seen the price of products? Alex was out at the grocery store Saturday picking stuff up. She came back. She said, I cannot believe in 1 week's time how much items have gone up. I mean, we talk about wood prices and all that, but it's everything. And this cannot continue. Inflation is going to be horrible, Rob.
Well, that's the thing is you cannot. There are certain economic realities that you can't ignore. When the government comes in and they inject a bunch of money into the economy, of course that's going to drive prices up. Of course that's going to drive inflation up, and it's also going to drive the value of the dollar down, which essentially is the same thing. All your money is only as good as how much of the stuff you want or need it can buy, right? That's really all its value is. So if you can buy less of it, your money is worth less. In a lot of ways, when the government injects this money and inflation goes up, you're getting a pay cut because your paycheck won't be able to cover all the things that it could before when inflation's going up. So this is a real problem. And on top of it, there's so many problems here. There's the economic side of it where we're just talking about inflation. There's the social side of it, which, Jay, I'm sorry, work is a good thing. Work is an honorable thing. People who are disconnected from the labor force, I think you're going to run into substance abuse problems. I think you're going to run into mental health issues. You're going to run into crime issues. There are a lot of other impacts, the social impacts. And then there's just the math of it where we don't have this money, Jay. We ran a $3.7 trillion budget deficit last year. Every month of the current fiscal year, our budget deficit has been higher than the same month last year. So we're on pace to beat that $3.7 trillion again. We'll see what happens by the end of the year. And on top of that, our national debt is closing in on $30 trillion, Jay.
We have people that are running this country into the ground because they don't understand that America is a business and it needs to be run like a business. And this is not how you run a business. You will run the business into the ground. Now, let's go back to the push from the left for how long? $15 an hour minimum wage, $15 an hour minimum wage. I've always said, look, that is not going to work because if you have a mandatory $15 an hour federal minimum wage, all that does is increases the cost of products. So at the end of the day, there I said it again. So what happens is you really didn't get a raise because you're paying more for everything. And I really believe the government handing out all this money, they're getting, and there's the left, they're getting what they wanted. Because now they don't have to push that $15 an hour minimum wage. The businesses are having to do it because the government is giving out money and people aren't coming back to work. So guess what? The government wins, they get what they want, but at the end of I got us off this end of the day. What happens is we all lose. We all lose. Nobody's gaining from this. We're all getting hurt by it.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. It's on Friday, and I ended up not being able to put up the interview because I had a Windows update, Jay, on my computer. Like everything that's being broadcast right now is coming out of my Windows desktop. Well, Windows decided to do an update and reset all of my audio configurations, right? Which you're a radio guy, you know how tricky that can be between the soundboard and then you have all the internal stuff. So anyway, I couldn't put up the interview, but I had it. I was able to actually do the interview. I didn't realize the audio was bad till after with NDSU professor Jeremy Jackson. He's an economist. He's a business guy, and that's the point he was making is a certain level of safety net helps an economy, right? Because what you don't want to happen is somebody, because it can happen to anybody. It can happen to the best person in the world. They lose their job. Something terrible happens to them. They get sick. And what you don't what you don't want them to do is hit rock bottom, right? So if things get so bad that all of a sudden they can't come back from it, that's what the safety net is supposed to protect from, right? It gives you a soft landing spot, and then you can prepare and you can get back at it into the workforce. A certain level of safety net is good for the economy. What's bad for the economy is when we go beyond that, where we've disincentivized work, where we go beyond that to where we're just spending so much money that we don't have because the politicians want to ingratiate themselves with the voters. And really, Jay, I think that's what it is. And listen, your guy, Donald Trump, wasn't any better at it. Because remember when we were debating stimulus checks back then and the Republicans were trying to draw the line at a lower level, who came out in favor of $2,000 a person stimulus checks? Donald Trump. He was wrong about it, but it's just, it doesn't matter which party they're affiliated with. Democrats, Republicans, it's just all of it's a race to see who can dole out the most cash. And
well, you're doling out cash for votes. I mean, let's be honest. You're buying votes. That's what this is now. When the whole Rona thing hit, and all right, government shutting businesses down, people can't go to work. I was all in support of the first round of stimulus. I got that. But this now, it's just, Rob, I don't see an end to it. And I think, kudos to Governor Burgum, kudos to the governor of Montana and others for saying, you know what, we're done. There's jobs out there. We're not participating in the federal unemployment benefits anymore. We're all done with this. You people need to get back to work. Kudos to them. And I believe that program ends in September for the states that haven't dropped it. But you know what's going to happen, Rob. Come September or before September, there's going to be either an extension or another program.
Yeah, well,
the government is not going to stop handing this money out.
Well, that's the other thing is things that are supposed to be temporary are never really temporary when it comes to government, right? Once they get something, once they get the ball rolling on something, and that's where I'm afraid we're never going to be rid of these monthly checks. People are going to come to depend on these monthly checks, and the government, we're never going to be able to get rid of it. We're never going to be able to say, no, sorry, you got to make your own money. Unless you come on a hardship or whatever, here's a safety net for you, but it's not going to be a comfortable safety net, right? We're going to keep your head above water, right? We're going to keep your head above water, and we're going to give you some room so that you can plot your next move and get back to being self-sufficient. We are promoting government dependency. And I think there are people out there who want you to be dependent on the government, because once you're dependent on the government, you're easier to control. You're easier to manipulate.
I believe the exact same thing. There's a group in here that I kind of understand getting help. And that is these parents that have kids in school, that have jobs, the way these schools have been run, they don't know if they can go to work the next day. They don't know if their kids are going to be in school, out of school. It's been a nightmare for them. So I understand some people taking advantage of this and not going back to work. As much as I despise, hey, look, if you can work, you should be working. But there's been parents that have been put in a horrible situation because, once again, hi, we're the government. We're here to help. No, you're here to screw everything up. And this whole school thing they've screwed up. They've turned it. It's been a nightmare. I don't see an end to this like Europe. I just don't. I'm telling you, mark my words, come September, and I believe that's when the federal unemployment extension thing ends, they're going to have something else. This is going to continue. I have so many friends that own businesses that are offering huge dollars, and they cannot get people. Either they can't get people to actually show, they'll come for the job interview to fulfill their obligations, but then they won't show back up. Or the other one, and you kind of brought it up, some of the problems we're going to see with people staying at home and not working, and that is you can't get people to pass a drug test.
So how do we talk about this in a way that is going to, because at the end of the day, we could talk about what the politicians are doing and everything.
You said it.
But who's okay? Now you got me doing it. Thanks a lot. We could talk about what the politicians are doing, but who are the people who are not showing up for work because they're getting unemployment benefits, right? I mean, that's something that the public's choosing. Who are the people who are going to reelect the politicians that are sending out the checks? I mean, that's what's really scary to me. The politicians will do whatever, right? They've all got their fingers in the wind. They're always gonna take the path of least resistance, and they're just out to get votes and to control power. We're the voters, right? And we're the people who are going to make the decision about, am I going to stay home and collect unemployment benefits, or am I going to go find a job and get to work and be self-sufficient? We're the ones making those decisions. So how do we, a lot of this is downstream from some cultural phenomena that are happening in our society, Jay. So how do we convince the larger public that this is wrong, that this is not good, and that you need to be self-sufficient?
Rob, that's a great question. I wish I had an answer. I don't, because, well, I think the answer is that, we're in even though I don't like talking politics a whole lot, but I do. We're in a business where we follow this, we see what's going on, but you got to realize the average Joe and Jane out there, I think for the most part, they just don't follow this. They're going about their lives, and they don't realize the ramifications of what this is going to bring, or what it is already bringing to us. I don't know how you change it. I just don't. I don't. I don't have an answer.
No, I don't either, but it's got to be a cultural thing. And I think getting back to that quote, and that quote, people have attributed it to a lot of different people. I think it was actually made up by some Oklahoma guy named Elmer. I was Googling it this morning trying to figure out. You know how it is with those quotes, right? Like somebody, Ben Franklin said this, and well, no, he didn't. Yeah. He never said that. But I think the quote has reality to it, right? Like if you live in the sort of government where it's all about the will of the people, that is predicated on the idea that the people are going to have good ideas and the people are going to want things that are healthy and good for our society. But what if what the people want is just checks in the mail financed by deficit spending? I mean, if that's what the people want, the government's going to deliver it.
I think that there are a lot of people out there, and that's what they want. They feel entitled. You owe me. I should have this. No, I don't owe you anything. You want something, you go work for it. Don't depend on the government. Don't depend on your neighbor. Don't depend on the billionaire out there to take care of you. Go take care of yourself. I mean, that's the way I was raised. And I think that there is a lot of people in these younger generations that don't feel. Now, I'm not tossing them all under the bus, but I think there's a lot in this generation that just don't feel that way. They don't feel like they have to go out and work. I put a post up the other day. There's a restaurant in Fargo here that's offering $15 to $19 an hour to be a line cook, plus $100 a month attendance bonus if you have perfect attendance, and a $500 signing bonus. And I just threw it up there to show people, hey, there's jobs out there, man. Here's a decent paying job. And I get attacked. People want to, okay, well, how much do you make? Well, what the hell does that got to do with me throwing a job up there that's paying, almost $20 an hour?
I'm not a cook. You're not a cook. You're not unemployed.
Exactly.
You have a job.
And oh, by the way, I've been doing this for almost 40 years, and I can guarantee I started out at minimum wage and I worked my way up. And see, that's the other problem too. You have people too that think that they should have it all right now in the job as well. Well, I want $30 an hour. Well, guess what? You don't have the experience to get $30 an hour. So you're going to have to work your way up.
What's interesting, you and I have, I think, jobs that are coveted. I think there's a lot of people that would like to do what you and I do. I mean, how many people out there would like to be a talk radio host versus how many people who actually get to do the job, right? How many people would like to be a columnist versus the number of people who actually get to do that for a living? I'm very lucky. But to get here, I have been continuously employed since the 4th grade. I started delivering newspapers for the Minot Daily News. I washed cars in the summer. I was an auto detailer. I'd worked over-the-phone technical support for Gateway Computers. Remember the cow boxes, right? I did that. Yeah. I did over-the-phone technical support for Disney computer games. I served civil process like divorce papers and eviction notices and stuff. I did a lot of stuff. I also wrote my blog for probably 7 years before I made a dime, before anybody was willing to pay me anything to write. I took every crappy guest hosting gig I could find on talk radio. I was guest hosting on Thanksgiving. I was guest hosting on Christmas Eve. I was doing everything. I didn't say no to anything because that's what it took to get my foot in the door. I worked like crazy. A lot of the work I did, I didn't really get paid that much for, if I got paid anything at all, but I made it. Because it's a ladder. Work is a ladder. I love work, and I love every one of those jobs I had along the way. They all taught me something. And we have this idea that you come out of school and you come out of college and you should just immediately be making $60,000, $70,000 a year. And the world just doesn't work like that. You're not worth, fresh out of college, you're probably not worth unless you're a doctor or something, you may not be worth $50,000 or $60,000. You got to get some years of experience under your belt.
But see, this goes back to, you bring up the college. I think part of the problem in this country, and we're kind of bouncing now, but this is one of my pet peeves. This push that everybody needs to go to college or should go to college. College is not for everybody, okay? College, yes, there is a need for it. But right now, if you look in the trades industry, and I think this problem is people think these jobs are below them. You look at the trade industry, whether it's plumbing, electrical, drywall, construction, I mean, the list goes on. 2-year colleges, technical college, I'm a huge supporter of that. You're in, you're out in 2 years. You've got very little debt, and you are getting into a field that can literally make you a multi-millionaire. And we're pushing this. We've just got this massive college push on our kids.
Well, the other,
you're right. They come out thinking, okay, where's my $70,000?
Well, can you blame them
that way?
Can you blame them for feeling that way? Because look at them. I still remember, and this was gosh, over 20 years ago now. But I remember the guidance counselors and the teachers and everything saying it's worth it to go tens of thousands of dollars into debt to get your college degree. It's worth it to get all of this money on the to go into all this debt and to pay all this money to attend college because you're gonna make 60, 70,000. I feel like we created that expectation among kids, and in part we did it in order to justify kids spending probably a heck of a lot more on college than maybe they should have.
But see now, when I went to school, college, it was talked about. It wasn't pushed like it is now. 2-year schools, technical colleges were a big thing, but also college debt. You didn't come out of college back then with a debt that's the same as a home mortgage. It was just college has gotten so expensive, and I don't know. You have kids in school. I don't anymore. I don't know how much, when they talk to these kids, Rob, now in school, when they're still in high school or even maybe junior high, I don't know. Do they talk to them about, okay, look, this is what you want to be. Realize if you go to college for that, here's the size of that job market. Here's about what it's going to pay. Are these kids talked about? Do the counselors talk to these kids about this stuff?
I don't know. I mean, that probably varies from counselor to counselor. I will tell you, as a matter of public policy, one of the things we did is we turned student loans into an entitlement. If you want a student loan, you can get a student loan. You're guaranteed to get it. And so it doesn't matter if you're going to study, the proverbial underwater basket weaving. And it doesn't matter how many underwater basket weavers actually get jobs, right? You can go hundreds of thousands. We allow people to go hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt in order to pursue a degree that may not ever enable them or put them in a good position to pay that money back. But yet we just finance it. Now, if you wanted to start a hot dog stand, right, and you go to a bank and you say, gosh, I'd like $25,000 because I want to start a hot dog stand, they're going to ask to see a business plan. They're going to want to understand your menu. They're going to want to see, well, is there demand for hot dogs in the place you plan on operating? Where do you plan on doing business, right? What are your costs? They're going to want to know a lot of that kind of stuff before they make the loan. We don't do any of that with student loans. You just roll in. I want a student loan. I want to study 17th century French poetry. Right? Which, don't get me wrong, that's probably a worthy endeavor. I'm a literary guy. I like that kind of stuff. But is it the sort of thing that's going to get you a job? Is it the sort of thing that's going to let you pay the bills? Is it the sort of thing that you should go hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt pursuing? Or maybe is it the sort of thing that you should study after you've established yourself in a career? And then maybe you could take some classes on the side. We have gone absolutely nuts. And so much of what we're going through right now, I think, is centered on just fundamentally poor public policy that we've made around higher education.
Well, now you have you have a government now that wants to pay off student debt. That's hey, you know what? Let's pay off your student loans.
Yeah.
Let's pay $50,000 of it up. Where's that money coming from? What message does that send?
Yeah, we led you down the primrose path, promising that you were going to make all this money just by getting a college degree. Well, turns out that was wrong. So now we're going to bail you out and we're going to pay off all your student loans too. And again, we can't exonerate the government. Who's at the center of all of this stuff? The government.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So,
and I'm a firm believer. Look, do I think there's people in government, senators, Congress people, that are really looking out, really want to do what's right for the people in the country? There are some out there, but I think, Rob, honestly, for the most part, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I honestly think that these people don't give a damn. All they want to do is keep getting reelected because that's the ultimate toy in their toy box. They want the benefits. They want the prestige. They want to see how many times they can get their face on Fox News or MSNBC or whatever it might be. It's not about the people anymore. It's about them.
Of course it is, and it always has been. I think the politicians have always been that way. They've always been a bunch of panderers. I think what's changed is that Americans are increasingly they're just okay. I cannot imagine as a person being satisfied just getting a check from the government, right? I don't want to create a stigma around the idea that you shouldn't get help if you need help, right? If you hit a tough patch, we have stuff out there. Hit the safety net. Use it to bounce yourself back. I don't want to create a stigma. There's nothing at all wrong with that. My problem is that culturally, we're going beyond that to where we're fine just living off the largesse of the government as a lifestyle. And
Rob, it's a drug. It's a drug, Rob. That's what it is. What does the drug dealer on the corner do? Here, first tastes are free. You get addicted to it. Oh, okay, here's some more. That's what this is. This is the government getting people addicted to the free money and people just going about their merry way and all the government will take care of me. I don't see an end to it. I do not see it happen because you're right. Once a government program starts, how often is it ever ended?
The only way it's going to end is if there's political incentive for it to end, which is that, continuing to push this stuff is going to cost some politicians their jobs. And I just don't see that happening anytime soon because both sides seem to love it. Trump was pandering to it. Biden's pandering to it. Everybody's pandering to it. And I don't know when it's going to end. What's coming up on the Jay Thomas Show? Oh, by the way, speaking of addiction, I gotta recommend. Jess and I started watching on HBO. It's called The Crime of the Century. It's a documentary about the opioid crisis and the Sackler family and Purdue Pharma and everything.
Yeah.
Holy cow. We watched about 45 minutes of the first episode. We have kids, so of course we can't ever get through one whole show. We have to watch everything in little bites. But holy cow, because they go back to the history of opium and pain medication, going back to like the opium wars in China. Fascinating stuff. It's so relevant now. So if I recommend, Jay, it's on HBO. If you have that, great documentary.
I'd have to get HBO to watch that. All right, let me give you a recommendation.
All right.
And Alex and I have been addicted to this. The 5th season, they finally announced it. Season 5 is going to start, I think, July 11th. It's on TNT. Have you ever heard or watched the show Animal Kingdom?
Animal Kingdom. No, I haven't heard
Okay, now, we had some friends suggest it to us about a year ago. And, the wintertime, it's nothing going on. Let's pop this thing on. I'm thinking, okay, it's a show about animals. No, it's a show about a mom who, when she was younger, was not that she'd commit robbery, steal from people while she had 4 boys from 4 different husbands or 4 different guys. And she's taught her boys how to be just top-notch criminals and do these heists, and they're all adults now. They live in this big place in Oceanside, California, which is by San Diego. It's based off a movie that was done in Australia by the same name. If you just want a movie to sit down and watch and go, I need to get away from everything and go, wow, this is one messed up family, Animal Kingdom.
That sounds,
wow, the first 4 seasons are up on demand, or you can buy them on DVD. That is a show. That's my suggestion.
That sounds pretty good. What's going up on the show this afternoon?
You and I at 2:00. The big fire here last week in Fargo in a place called Gigi's Playhouse, which was it burnt down, and they really They've got insurance, but they need more help rebuilding it. And it was a place for kids with special needs to go, and it was one of the very few, if only, places of its kind here in Fargo. So we're going to have those folks on. What else we got coming up? I had some other stuff. Matter of fact, just before you and I got on, my producer was in here rattling in my ear, and I can't remember what else we have going on. We're going to have fun like always.
Yeah, like always. Coming up on Tuesday, I've got an interview with a guy from the Freedom from Religion Foundation talking about North Dakota's new 10 Commandment laws, and they're threatening lawsuits the first time somebody puts up one of these 10 Commandment things. So
yeah, you knew that was going to happen.
We'll talk about that. I really don't understand, and I've always been somebody like. People are religious, and I'm not religious. I'm an atheist, but people are religious, and I don't have a problem with people bringing religion into the public square.
Sure.
I don't go fainting into the bushes when I see a nativity scene in a public park or something. I don't see it's a big deal as long as we're providing equal access to everybody, right? The 10 Commandment thing, I think, is a problem because it's just the 10 Commandments, right? And all the people who are saying, well, it's whatever, it's okay. I wonder how they would feel if somebody wanted to put up like the Quran or something in a public school.
Well,
I have a feeling they'd be feeling quite a bit differently.
Yeah, and the argument you'll get from people is, well, that's the Quran. This country was built on Christianity. Well, that's fine and all. That's great. And I have no problem with the 10 Commandments hanging up in a school or out in a public square. I don't care. But realize that you're going to have to give that equal time to whatever the religion is.
Yeah.
So this thing is going to get just blown apart.
Well, it's like the First Amendment. Like if you want the right to say what you want to say, even if it makes people mad, well, then other people are going to have the right to say what they want to say, even if it makes you mad. And that's just how the world works. But all right, Jay. Well, we'll talk with you tonight at 2 o'clock. This afternoon. That's how old I'm getting. 2 p.m. is tonight.
And go take a nap. I'll talk to you too.